we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing is we're going to talk about is what are the Orishas. We're going to go through and just answer some of the very frequently asked questions that I get about this. You are very welcome. So, someone is saying thank you for the live. I appreciate you all showing up and your support. Greatly appreciated for you guys. Even asking the questions because I do get so many different DMs and it gives me insight into what you guys want to know. So, definitely reach out if you have different questions and we can go much deeper into this in a live screen. So, the Orishas, what are they? Orishas are spiritual forces, messengers. They can be even thought of as gods, and I'm going to get to that aspect of them in a little bit. They are absolutely innumerable, infinite. You cannot count them. There's no specific number. You may sometimes see that there are 401, right? That one actually indicates that there are so many more than what we can count. That's why it's an odd number 401 or something like that. Basically referring to the infinite, the countless nature of Orisha, what they are and what they are about. These are messengers of Olodumare, the supreme being that's referred to in the Yoruba tradition. That's what Yoruba call the supreme creator, the sovereign God, if you will, if you want to think about it in the context of like an Abrahamic religion, right? And I'll get to the part about Orishas also being gods because they are you. Again, there's some discrepancy in the terminology that people use, so forth and so on, but we're going to talk about that. The Orishas have supernatural powers. These are forces of nature as well. Let me say that too. They have supernatural powers to come and help us out, right? And to do so many different things for us and also to us. The Orishas are part of us. They live within us, right? Those elemental natures that we have within us, the fire, the air, the water, so forth, even earth, the minerals, so forth, live within us. They also live within our environment. They're all around us all the time. There are varying degrees of Orishas, and there are various ones that walk with us at any given specific point in time. Okay, and we're going to really dig into that head Orisha notion in a little bit. Now, as I said before, Orishas are also considered gods and ancestors. Orishas are not the one sovereign being creator God as in Olodumare is. However, they are gods or divinities in their own right. You guys have to understand too the meaning of that word God, especially when we're talking about it from the perspective of the English language. Even the ancient word for God is not what most people think, because most people, when they hear God, they're thinking about one sovereign being. However, God refers to pretty much anything with a divine nature to it. So even so, angels could be considered gods. And for those of you all coming from that type of context, you could think about Orishas as angels, but I'm not going to personally say that they are the exact same thing because there are some discrepancies in the qualities. But just to kind of get a context of what the Orisha are, if you're completely unfamiliar with that context, you can sort of think about them in that way. Okay. They're also ancestors, okay? Not in the same way that you're going to think about your blood relatives from your direct lineage. Instead, Orishas serve as collective ancestors. All right. They embody the notion that they're caring for everyone at the same time because they are part of your nature and who you are. Absolutely, they are considered your ancestors because they are part of your lineage, of your bloodline, of your makeup. All right, your being, I should say. I don't mean bloodline in the same way as through birth, though, we do have those characteristic traits and things like that. Some of the mythology can be debatable about, whether somebody is directly from one specific bloodline of an Orisha or not, but I'm not going to get too deeply into that topic right now. So that's kind of a good overview of what they are, okay? Now, oftentimes people do kind of get it mixed up because sometimes people say the Orishas are gods. As I said before, they are divinities, they are lesser gods, if you will. So you can kind of think about this concept in relation to the Olodumare and the Orisha. Olodumare, if you're looking at it from the perspective, an earthly perspective, we're going to go back to like a traditional type of setting. Think of Olodumare as the king. Think of the Orishas as like the chiefs of the village. And even so, like the highest chief or something like that, that would be considered more so like Obatala, because Obatala is like the king or the chief of the Orishas. Okay, there's a hierarchy that exists within the spiritual realm as well as in the earthly realm. It mirrors what we do, as above, so below. So we do have that, even so that hierarchy with the Orishas and also other spiritual forces. But I don't want to get too deep into like, where everybody else fits the egg and ancestors right now. I'll probably do that in a different live stream as I speak about those particular entities on their own. Okay. Now the head Orisha. Who is your head Orisha? What is a head Orisha? All right. The head Orisha or your head Orisha is going to be that spiritual force that resonates most with you. And this is sometimes what people get mixed up because they want to go first in and who is my head Orisha and focus on that when they first come to the tradition. There's nothing wrong with wanting to know who your head Orisha is. This deity is very important. It can help you so much in really understanding yourself, your own personality. I know me when I found out like Ogun is my head Orisha, I was like, yes, that resonated with me deeply because I have so many traits like yeah, I'm like a mirror of going in so many different aspects. And that's helpful for me understanding the trials and the things that he went through, especially as I learn about like the mythology and the other aspects of, the things that he went through during his sojourn, his earthly sojourn, right? Likewise, it can help other people. This is why knowing your head Orisha can be very, very beneficial to you. But at the same time, it's not always your head Orisha that is going to be acting on your behalf when you do get an Ifa reading. Peace and love to all. Greetings, everybody. Alafia to everybody who is coming in and joining me right now. Thank you all for showing up. But going back to what I was saying, your knowing that particular deity in your life can be so beneficial. It can help you just really understand yourself on a deeper level and help you to understand how to behave and to act, understand the trials and tribulations and the things that you just go through, right? Even not the bad stuff, even the good stuff that you go through in day-to-day life, because it shows you how they live and how they handle things, right? Just like I said before, this is like your parent. Your head Orisha is your parent, your guardian. In a similar way here that we deal with our parents on earth. This is the spirit that is vibing with you the most. It's not to say that you don't have other Orishas that work with you. We're going to talk about that as well. The different Orishas that can be working with an individual, because there can be multiple ones. There are, not can be. Everybody has multiple Orishas that work with them. Okay. How do you know who your head Orisha is? That information, guys, is only revealed through Ifa divination when we are talking about Ifa, the Ifa tradition specifically. Now, of course, there are other African traditions or what have you that absolutely have other, systems, divination systems, so forth, and so on, that are going to have different courses in which they figure out, the head Orisha or whatever they would call in their tradition, because it probably wouldn't be head Orisha in the same way that we talk about it in the Yoruba culture, okay? So, but this is the spirit that resonates with you, all right? You're going to have those traits just like them. You get that reading, that's how you know who your head Orisha is. And I'm going to talk about some discrepancies there because this happens a lot too. Number one, any Shay There is only one head Orisha, not two. I know some of you all have, heard that, especially when you're coming from other traditions like the Santeria, Lukami, because sometimes they identify that you have an Orisha that governs your head and one that governs your feet. That is in those traditions. I cannot speak to how that came about and why, that is passed along, but in Isheshe, that is not the case. Likewise, in general, in Isheshe, your head Orisha remains with you, remains the same, brother, throughout the entirety of your life. It does not change. That is another, um, I don't want to say rumor, but I say misconception for the most part that spread throughout the diaspora. I have my theories on why it is common that people say these things, but it happens, right? So sometimes you'll be told that sometimes when you get a reading from multiple people, you will be told that your head Orisha changes. And I think, me personally, I think that's in part why that has happened, because sometimes people get different readings and then it's like, well, this person told me that and that person told me this about my head Orisha. And I think that's probably how that kind of conception came to be. I'm not sure though. Um, Find out mine a few minutes ago. Okay. I'm getting some comments, guys. Let me get back to the discussions. So you're saying Prophet Soul Guide Inc. Sometimes there are Orishas who benefit our lives that might not be our head Orisha, but important to our life. Absolutely. Thank you for pointing out. And that is something that I'm going to get to as well. That is so true, guys. And this is what people have to understand. Also, there is a situation where, like I said before, generally your head Orisha is going to stay with you throughout your life. It's like your parent, right? So your parent is your parent, your biological parent, throughout the entirety of your life. That person does not change. That will be the same for the most part with the Orisha. Now, there are situations where even though you have a biological parent, sometimes you may have a guardian, somebody else who is caring for you that is not your biological parent for different reasons. And so that's a different scenario. Sometimes when a person gets Isefa, they receive their hand of Ifa. And they may get this before they go through the full initiation process, Itefa. So they get their hand of Ifa. They start working with Ifa. It may take a year, even longer sometimes, before they get to full initiation. When they get to full initiation, it may be that their head Orisha changes. This is rare though. In Ishesha, this is rare. This is not something that's very common. It could be different circumstances that require you to then have to be guarded by a different spirit based on your life path. And so that would be the case, just like we see in day-to-day life. The majority, at least historically, of people were raised by their biological parents. But in certain cases, they may be adopted. Maybe their biological parent, passes away. That wouldn't be the case for an Orisha, but just giving an example here. Or it could be a situation where the biological parent just is neglectful and they can't take care of them for whatever reason, and so somebody else does. It could be grandparents, it could be a complete stranger, etc. So sometimes that does happen. Okay, so I'm getting some comments here. I love the way you explain things. Thank you so much. True, in Santeria and Isheshe, it's been noted to be the same Orisha. Yes, excuse me, guys. Absolutely, it's the same. So now, going back to that issue with getting different head Orishas from different readers, all of that has to do with how the reading is conducted. Some readings just aren't conducted properly, right? And so I say here is that you're going to have to tap within yourself, connect with Ori, and ask Ori which one of these is right. Your head Orisha is the spirit that resonates with you the most. So you probably already know that. That scenario happened to me. I was initially told that Ogun was my head Orisha by one Ianifa. And I got a reading from an Awo, and I was told by that owl that two different Orishas, neither which was Ogun. It was Oshun and Shango. I can't remember which one he said first at this point. And then I got another reading, and I was told again that Ogun was my head Orisha. When I was first told Ogun was my head Orisha, I vibe with that so much because I know I carry the energy deeply of Ogun. I, I can partially see Shango, but Oshun, no. Like I'm not this like really feminine energy and so forth and so on. Like I may not seem like it, especially when I come here because Ifa has helped me so much to calm down and transition my personality in the way that I need to. But whew, I got that Ogun energy, right? And I know that. And so that's what really vibe with me personally. So again, you're going to have to figure out for you what is vibing with you. All right. Now, can you know, can you have multiple Orishas guiding you? Absolutely. And I do think this is part of the reason why there are many discrepancies with this, because sometimes it may be that a person has many Orishas that are close to them, a number of Orishas that are really, really close to them. And so sometimes whatever happens during that process, it gets mixed up. And so one Orisha may seem like that's the head Orisha, but is really not, okay? Because even saying it, I did come to find out that yes, I am really closely connected to Oshun, right? She governs certain aspects of me, and I can see that part with me because I absolutely love water. I will always love water. Matter of fact, my mom said my first words were, "I want some water," right? Which is, it wasn't mama, it wasn't daddy, or any of those types of words. And I can see that because I absolutely love being around water. But that is generally not like my personality to be calm and cool and serene and temperate. It took a lot of work for me to get there. And sometimes I'm still not there. Sometimes I can still, go and get in me and I'm ready to go, right? I'm ready to go to war. So you have to, again, figure that part out for yourself. Now, there are certain Orishas that vibe with everybody, right? So it's going to be important for you to work with these particular Orisha because of their role in the whole Yoruba pantheon. So there's going to be Ifa, Eshu, your Ori. Everybody has their own personal Ori. And Ig and Iyami, all right? So now when it comes to working with these particular Orishas, anybody can just go and say, yeah, I want, to get a pot or what have you for these, except for Yummy. Yummy does not have her own pot. She takes for that group of spirits, rather, because it's not just one spirit. But the mothers, they take their offerings with Eshu. So if you just feel inclined and you say you want to get an Orisha pot for either of these, it is perfectly fine. It's okay even so to say that you want to work with another Orisha that's not your head, or, nobody ever told you about them. You just feel like, hey, I want to work with this particular Orisha. There's nothing wrong or bad in that in and of itself. But I just caution anybody, like, don't go out here just getting all of these Orisha pots just because, or especially because you think possessing that Orisha pot is going to get you the energy of that particular Orisha, okay? Because that's another thing. That's one reason why people want, especially Oshun. Like a lot of people really want to work with Oshun a lot because they feel like she's just going to bless them and give them all of these riches and so forth and so on. If your destiny is not connected with that, then you don't need to just go out and get a no-shoot pot if that's the reason. It's best for anybody to just go and do the Lakeys or what have you. And I did a whole live stream on the Lakeys and what they're about and their role and their function as far as connecting us with the Orishas. So check that out. It's available on YouTube, guys. So you're not required, even with your head Orisha, you're not required to possess any Orisha pot. Now there are definitely going to be situations where you'll get a reading and it'll reveal it will be great for you to have, Ifa, the hand of Ifa, or your Egbe, or whatever Orisha that is governing you, because in doing so, it's going to help you work out, your energy and balance yourself much better. Okay. It may be a situation where you might be about to suffer death or a serious sickness or something like that if you don't get that pot, but you are never compelled to do anything. As I always say, the diviner is required to tell you what is in the reading. It is up to you as far as what you do. Nobody should pressure you, though they need to tell you you could die. There could be some impending death. There could be an impending sickness or something like that if you don't do this. But the choice is up to you to do it. Okay. There are situations though where sometimes, like I said, where you will get that to come up. If you can't possess a pot for whatever reason, because some pots we actually don't recommend that the average person just get in their home, like Ogun, for instance, because Ogun requires some heavy artillery. He's a warrior energy. So, and that grows. Every time you give Ogun something, that's going to grow because you don't just go and remove that, right? So you want to be careful with those types of things. Or it could be a situation where you don't have the space in your environment. Maybe you live in a studio, type of situation, and it's going to be a lot to have all of these Orisha pots in your home. Or you might live with somebody who is just not a great idea because they're against that. You can actually keep those things with your owl at their temple. You can still get the pot, like design and creating and so forth for you, and leave it there with them, and then have your owl to feed the Orisha for you whenever you feel like you need to do so. Or if it's a situation where you was about to say, where it comes up in a reading or something like that, therein you can go ahead and get that done. Yes, Ogun can be wild and aggressive, 1000%. Yes, very wild. So definitely those are some things that you can do. Otherwise, if you want to be closely connected to all of the Orishas, and some people have some, like a lot of Orishas, like maybe 10, 12, so forth, the Orishas that are really, really closely connected to them, I don't advise you to go and just get a bunch of pots for all of these Orishas, because these are things that you need to work with. It's not like you just get a pot and you just, put it in your home and that's it. Like, you need to be feeding this pot. You need to be, cleaning the area regularly and just doing a whole lot of things that you don't need to do unless you are prepared for that. It's best in those cases to get Elekis, like I talked about before, because these Elekis rather, can connect you deeply to the Orishas and help you with all of the things that they work with. So, like, you can do it on an easier level that way. I'm not saying not to get Orisha pots. I'm just saying definitely be careful before you go and get some, pots and icons and so forth and so on, before you're ready for it holistically, mind, body, soul, spiritually as well, definitely financially or economically, etc. So be careful with that. Now, sacrifices and offerings. Let's talk about that, because I do get asked that, like, why do we feed the Orishas or what have you? So, Ebo is about balancing out things. You give in order to get. There's a saying that there's nothing free in the spiritual realm. It's a quid pro quo situation, something for something. Pretty much just like you would interact with somebody else. Absolutely. This is being recorded. I'm being asked, is this being recorded? I'd love to revisit this later. Absolutely. Check me out on my YouTube channel. It will be there. Probably tomorrow sometime I'll get in and I'll clean it up, but it'll be there from the door, where you can, as soon as we get off, you can get it from immediately. And these are people on Instagram, because I'm live in 4 places, guys. So, going back to what I was saying, this is a quid pro quo dynamic, right? Something for something. Same way you deal with people in the real world. you shouldn't always be the one giving, you shouldn't always be the one receiving, because in either case that creates a void, and a void is never good. So there's an exchange dynamic that goes on. Honoring the Orisha is about, giving them those dynamics. Sacrifice being a life force offering, animal blood. Okay, offerings could be pretty much any other type of material that their particular Orisha takes. That's why we give those things. Okay. You're saying, Ms. Ren, you're saying I found out, changed my life course. Ashe, Ashe. All righty. I got a few people. All right, Kalawoli, yes, sure is possible. Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm assuming you guys are talking about the Orishas. I'm sorry, you too, because I'm managing too. And whew, Instagram just goes. So it catches my attention more so than when the YouTube moves. And Thomasine, greetings. Thank you for this clarification. Ashe, you are always welcome, my dear. So absolutely. Going back to what I was saying, as far as this goes, so you're giving something to balance these dynamics out. Okay, this is what I always say: do not get an Ifa reading unless you're ready to give those sacrifices and offerings. And I've talked about this a number of times, but I do plan to expound upon like elbow specifically by itself in a different live screen, because I do get asked that question a lot. But that's what elbow is about. It's about balancing our dynamic. So you give those Orishas something, they're going to give you something in return. You don't ever want that void left in the spiritual realm. Do the Orishas work for you or help you out without you giving sacrifices ever? Absolutely, 100%. However, they're going to work even harder for you whenever you give sacrifices and offerings, right? That's just common sense. That's like how we do in the real world. If you got somebody who is appeasing you and doing things to bring you in their favor, you are more likely to not only do stuff for them, but do it with a willing, happy, open heart, rather than you doing it because it's just obligation. I got to do it, right? So if you even as a child, like if you have a if you have a child and that child is like really obedient, doing good things for you, even so when they get a certain age and they're still taking care of you, they're coming and they're or taking care of you, I should say, they're bringing you flowers, for instance, for Mother's Day, or they're just coming to take you out for a special treat and things like that. You are going to be more inclined to help that child anytime that they are in need, versus if you have another child. Let's say you have two children. One is always, coming to you, giving you gifts and taking care of you and so forth and so on. And then you have another child over here that you barely talks to you and they only call you when they need you. It's not that you won't help out that other child, but you probably are just going to do the minimum. Sometimes you might not even do that, depending on that connection with that child. So think about it that way when it comes to giving sacrifices and offerings. The more you give and you take care of your Orishas and you spend time with your Orishas, the more they're going to want to help you. They'll start to just do things for you without you asking them to do things for you. But they're going to just do the basics. Otherwise, whatever they're inclined to do. Somebody saying, you drink water, then you urinate, give and take always. Absolutely. There has to be a foundation there for it to even come, right? So you're drinking water, it has to come out. This is a cycle. This is a process, okay? Everything needs to be fed. Spirits need to be fed too. They want to feel like, they're not only do they need certain things in order to work at a stronger or higher capacity on your behalf, but giving them those things with a joyful, not a begrudging heart. That's another thing too. Let me say this, because it's not just about giving the ebo, but giving it with a joyful, happy spirit and heart, right? If you're gonna give it begrudgingly, like, I don't want to do this, so forth and so on, I say don't give it, really, because it's no point. Think about your child or your mate, whoever coming to you, and they're giving you something out of obligation, and they just like, here you go. You're not going to appreciate that. It's the same thing when it comes to the Orishas. So, be respectful, be kind. If you're not ready for it, don't, traverse that path. Don't even go down that path. They can help you, they will help you, they do help you. Like, so many blessings have come from this process for me personally, right? But it is a process. It's something that I have to go through just like everybody else. And so I have to feed my Orishas. I have to work with my Orishas. I have a few Orisha pots that I feed, I honor, so forth and so on. Um, Oakland Park Hero, you're saying the Ebo. It's Ebo. So yes, it's spelled right here, Ebo, with the Ebo, sacrifice and offerings, down with taboo. Thank you for putting that in there. EBO. Sometimes I see it spelled EBBO as well. So we got to remember too, we're dealing with translations and so forth, because this is not, the English language. This is the Yoruba language. So definitely, you guys, you want to give. You want to make sure that you are feeding your spirits, because they will absolutely take care of you. The more you, I say there's no better defense than having a well-fed spirit. You take care of them, they are going to take care of you. Okay. Um, You saying, oh, another word for offering. Okay, I wondered the meaning. Thanks. So the Ebo is actually the sacrifice, the blood that is being shed from the life force offering that you give to the Orishas. Absolutely. Okay, so where was I at? Now, also, let me say this as well when it comes to giving Ebo or sacrifice. Um, this can be performed after Idafa or anytime you have an Orisha pot or what have you. You need to absolutely give or feed according to the recommendations. I'm not telling anybody here to go out and just give an offering to an Orisha without going through the proper protocol. Absolutely in Isheshe. So you're asking what's good to feed Ogun. I'm going to get to that. Any spirit, I'm not going to say exactly what Ogun takes a number of different things. However, it's not just about going out and feeding Ogun or any other spirit without knowing the protocol for it. Typically, a priest or a priestess is going to feed them on your behalf if you're not initiated and you do not know how to work with that Orisha properly. It's not just going and like putting together some type of shrine on your own and saying this is Ogun and I'm just going to feed Ogun, right? It requires actually blood to activate an Orisha pot unto any Orisha, so it's not just Ogun, right? And I know you guys see this, and I understand the reason why you asked this question. It is very, very common because people think that like I could just go out and get some things and feed this Orisha because I want to, and that's not how it works. There's a lot of information on the internet, like you just give this offering, you set up this altar, and you feed this particular Orisha or even the Luwa when it comes to voodoo. That's no, you need to know exactly what you're doing when it comes to the Orishas and how to feed them and so forth and so on. Again, if you're not initiated, if you don't have a pot on your own and nobody has taught you how to work with that pot, I'm going to say just go to your owl and get your Orishas fed that way. And it could be like you just feel like feeding Ogun, even if Ogun is not your head Orisha. That's perfectly fine. Contact somebody who knows what they're doing so that they can give the offering on your behalf. Do not just go out there and say, oh, Ogun takes dogs and I'm going to go and, shed some blood for a dog today and just spill it out on the ground or on a tree or whatever you may feel like is appropriate, or even if you go and put together some makeshift stuff, that's a waste of time and money, right? So I would not do something like that to you if I were you. Not only that, when you start shedding blood, you're inviting so many different spiritual forces to understand any spirit loves blood. Okay. And if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the proper incantations to where you're inviting in the right spirit to come and consume that blood, You could be inviting so many other type of spirits, all right? And you want to be careful with that. You want to be careful because it could be so many things going on that you don't need to be doing. Um, okay. I don't know how to say the name. Olaga. Okay, we'll talk about it. If you want to DM me, we can absolutely talk about that in more depth. Okay, because she was asking me about a ritual that we had talked about before. Absolutely. So devotees considered initiates. So not just initiates by themselves. An initiate is a devotee. However, in order to be a devotee, you do not have to be initiated. A devotee is anybody who worships or serves the Orishas, right? But you don't have to be initiated to be devoted to an initiate. They're not the exact same thing. Thank you for that question because that is another very important question to answer to understand the difference between that. And that's a major factor as well when it comes to different ways to honor the Orisha. You don't just do anything with an Orisha if you're not initiated, you have not been trained in the process of giving blood to an Orisha. Okay. Okay, we will talk. Absolutely. Gabby, we will talk. Thank you for that, Gabby. Appreciate it. We will talk, okay? Just DM me and we can have that conversation in more depth. Okay. So going back to what I was saying, sorry about that, guys. We were talking about giving the offerings or what have you. So that's important too. You need an activated pot. So I'm gonna go on from there. Now, how do you pray to the Orisha? That's another major question. How do I pray? How do I pray in Ifa? Again, if you have an icon, you should know this process already. So if somebody gave you an icon, they should be teaching you step by step how to work with their icon. It's going to come with different what do you call it, incantations and things like that, where you're going to say things that you're going to be feeding the Orisha. And that's part of prayer itself when you're actually giving offerings to that Orisha, etc. If you do not have an Orisha pot, you can pray to Orishas just the same way that you would pray in any other religion. You call upon the name of that specific Orisha and you say what it is that you want to say to them. Again, do not offer any Orisha blood, even so other materials. I don't advise you to just go and start giving any spirit anything. Blood is going to attract that spirit more so than anything else than just like the fruits and stuff like that. But when you lay out offerings for spiritual forces and you don't know exactly what you're doing, you're going to be attracting any type of spirit. So it's just best to just speak from your heart. Talk to that Orisha, whatever Orisha it is, if it's Ogun or whoever. Even if you have an activated pot, you can still do that. In the Yoruba tradition, obviously, there are specific incantations that you are going to say in the Yoruba language. However, if you don't know those incantations, you're not ready for that process, it's not the best idea to just start doing it. This usually happens whenever you have the pot and so forth, and you know the proper protocol for doing all of that. I have another comment. Blood is a currency in the spiritual realm. As a devotee, would their prayers and fruit offerings be accepted without having a priest present? It will if you know what you're doing. Again, if you are a devotee and you've been shown how to do it the proper way, you don't have to have a priest to give the blood offering for you. However, it is not advisable to just do a blood offering, not understanding what you do. Okay. Khalid, I speak Arabic, but I use the same type of practice. Thank you for that, saying that, because I was thinking only about English speakers, but absolutely whatever language that you speak that you're more used to, Khalid, you probably think in Arabic. So if that's the language of your heart, speak whatever language of your heart, speak from the heart, right? It doesn't have to be anything fancy and all of these different verses and stuff, so forth and so on. Speak in the same way that you would speak to anybody that you're talking to in the earthly realm when you're having a sincere conversation with that person. Try not to be distracted with a bunch of stuff, going on, like scrolling through your phone and so forth and so on, right? You want to be respectful the same way you would be respectful when you're talking to, anybody, your children, your spouse, your mate, or what have you. What do? You want to, turn the noise down or off, preferably completely off, and just have a sit down chit chat, talk to that spirit about what you want, or what you need, or what have you. If you want to invite it closer to you, what should I do? Where should I go? Show me the right path or the right way to do whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, and they will lead you. They will answer your prayers. It's not like you can only talk to the Orishas just when you're giving them a sacrifice and offering, because you can talk to them anytime. But the most important thing there is to say the prayers from your heart. Even if you're doing incantations, the same thing. Incantations is not just about reciting things. You need to be saying things from your heart. You need to really feel what you're saying. A heartfelt, true conversation, because that's all prayer really is communicating with the spiritual force. Okay. Now, how do I know when a specific Orisha is working with me or wants to work with me? So I'm going to give you guys about 10 different signs. There are many more, but just some common signs that are easily recognizable. But before I do get into this is a caveat here. A lot of times you're going to have this communication come because you're going to be seeing or experiencing this Orisha maybe in dreams and visions and so forth and so on. Do understand, if you're constantly reading about an Orisha or watching videos or what have you that discuss the Orisha, yeah, it's going to be common for you to have dreams about an Orisha. So that doesn't mean that specific one is talking to you. Right? If you're constantly, looking up Oshun, what does she take? I love Oshun, so forth and so on. And you go to sleep at night and you have a dream about Oshun coming to you. That could just be a consequence of what you were doing in your waking state. Okay. It could be that Oshun is calling you. I'm not saying that she isn't, but just be mindful of that. All right. One more question here is, it's okay. No, you're good. Continue to ask whatever questions you guys have. All right. So you're saying non-blood offerings for a devotee, can those prayers be accepted? Yes. Let me tell you, when you're praying to a spiritual force, they are always going to be listening to you. Now, whether they grant your wishes or, whatever you're praying about is a completely different dynamic, because it depends on what you're praying about. This is why Ifa divination is so important, right? Because you may be praying to Ogun, for instance, and asking Ogun, well, I need protection in this battle because Ogun is their warrior spirit, and maybe you're dealing with a lot of enemies. And it could be that Ogun, rather, is not the Orisha that is responsible for helping you out in that battle. So you don't know until you get that Ifa reading. It could be Shango. All right. Shango is a fighter too. It could be a whole different energy that is not even considered a warrior energy that could be protecting you in that particular battle. It could be a battle of wits, right? So it could be SU coming through to help you out to navigate that. Somebody might be trying to close up doors for you. And so SU needs to open up a way. It could be any spirit. So be careful with that. Even so, when I say don't just spill blood unto an Orisha, the same dynamic also goes for giving offerings, right? You don't just give these things without knowing exactly what you're doing. It's so important. You're welcome. It is so important, guys, for you to understand the protocol, the signature of spirits, because this is what gets a whole lot of people in trouble, saying that they're going to work with an Orisha and they just start doing some stuff that they read offline or in a book, or they heard somebody say, they watched a TikTok video or what have you, and then they start having all kind of spiritual problems because they don't know what they were doing. Okay. And greetings everybody who is coming in still. So Khalid, you're asking, do you believe if you have body pain and sickness, there's deeper sense of old patterns that you have to shed? Absolutely. It could definitely be that, right? But again, I personally absolutely believe in divination. Okay. There are times when your Ori will just let you know. And so if you're sensing that this pain or sickness in my body has to do with something that I've been through before that I need to get rid of, and most sickness is that, like, it's not just physical. Some of it could be, excuse me, some of it could be physical. Of course, if you like hurt yourself, fell or something like that. But a lot of it, like the rheumatism, most people that suffer from rheumatism are absolutely suffering from some kind of emotional trauma that has been left undealt with, and it's something that has to be taken care of on a different level than just going and taking medicine for that arthritis. Rheumatism being rheumatoid arthritis, right? So absolutely. If you just know, that's fine. But if you're not sure, absolutely get a reading, get some form of divination to know what's going on there. But going back to the signs, so if you're having repeated dreams of that same deity, again, outside of you constantly looking it up and so forth and so on, especially if you had no contact at all with this spirit, you never heard of this spirit, and this spirit comes to you in a dream and you just keep hearing or seeing Obatala, for instance, and you never even heard of Obatala before, that's a really strong sign that Obatala is calling you, right? Being told obviously by different priests or people with that calling or their understanding that a specific Orisha is around you or calling you, that's a strong sign that they're trying to communicate with you or guide you. um you're saying you're responding to Khalid down with Taboo. You're saying yes, and along with the divination there's a book called Metaphorical Anatomy. You get it through the word. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that reference as well. So absolutely, going back to what I was saying, being told by multiple people like this Orisha is working with you for sure. Numbers, symbols, names, pretty much any type of synchronicities that you're experiencing related to that particular Orisha is very, very common to know that they're calling you. So if you're constantly seeing the number 9, for instance, that may be Oya trying to speak to you. And you definitely need to heed the call and see what's going on with that. You might just feel a certain urge, like to honor an Orisha, to learn about an Orisha. That's a sign that Orisha is possibly calling you. Okay. And again, I'm not going with absolutes here. These are just signs and symbols. You will have to go and do the work to see if this Orisha really calling me. Do the work means getting a reading to see what's going on with that situation. And I say Edefa, not a tarot reader, not a psychic reading, those types of things. I mean, the reading through the EFI system. What else? Avoiding danger or harms in ways that just miraculous, right? I see these videos all the time on like YouTube where somebody is about to cross the road or something, and then all of a sudden they're just swept up, and the next thing you know they're on the other side of the road, and they avoid this like near hit that could have been really, really disastrous for them. Those are Orishas at work, guys. I see that all the time, and I'm like, every time, yeah, that person is really, really being protected, and they might not even be into the tradition or anything like that. Your Orishas still work with you and protect you even outside of these dynamics. It's just that you get it to a heightened level when you start to appease them through Evo sacrifices and offerings. Okay. What else? Items that mysteriously appear or disappear. That's a really strong sign of your Ege trying to get your attention. If you keep losing stuff and you like, I know I put that here, and nobody else is in this house but me, and I put this right here. Yeah, it's probably your Egg trying to get your attention. They are notorious for that. Khalid, you study surfism practices. Heard about the book. Okay, you're talking to somebody else. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Hearing disembodied voices that can lead you away from danger. Two things here, right? So when I say disembodied voices, that means like you don't, there's no person attached to it. You're just hearing a voice. This voice may be calling, you may hear somebody calling your name, and then you go walk away to check to see, who is calling you. And as soon as you move, let's say the roof or something just falls, and it was a near miss, and it was just like, oh my God, I just missed this thing. And then you go and see, even to, like, who was actually calling me, and you realize it was nobody calling you, especially if you hear like a familiar voice. Usually you're going to hear like a familiar voice, maybe your parents or your children or your spouse or something like that, and that person wasn't actually calling you. They probably were pulling you away from whatever you were doing at that moment so that you would miss some type of danger. Okay. Or sometimes they're doing that to get your attention so that you investigate. Like, I hear this voice calling me, let me see what's going on. And so you go and get a reading, and you realize, oh, my spirits are trying to communicate with me through this mechanism. Again, there are also times where you can hear disembodied voices, and they could be evil spirits that are trying to cause you problems. Know the difference, okay? So don't just answer. I always say, don't just answer any type of call if you feel like it's something spiritual or something like that. Again, knowing the difference will be going to get that reading. Usually, though, if something happens right after, where, like I said in that example, you hear the voice, you move out of the way real quick, the roof falls. Like, that was just clear communication. Usually doesn't need a reading, but if you want to get one, you could definitely do it then. But if you're just hearing a voice and nothing else is happening, it's probably just a sign that your spirit is trying to get your attention. In Orisha, or one of your spirits is trying to get your attention to where you go and get a reading or something like that. Okay. Um, I got some messages here. I agree. Divination provides answers, guidance, clarity. However, it is possible that the ER priest has been prevented by a particular Orisha to provide the reading. um, that could happen. Not that they will prevent. A lot of times that comes in diasporic traditions, because that kind of scenario does happen in voodoo. I can't say that, but voodoo is not the same as the way readings are done in Ifa, so it's a little bit different. I've never heard of a scenario, and I will disagree. If you're there, maybe you can put clarity on this. I saw you in the room earlier. So the scenario is, she's saying, I think it's Levine. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, but the statement is, however, it is possible that an EO or priest has been prevented by a particular Orisha to provide information about you in a reading. I've never seen that happen in Ifa because the divination system is different, but I have seen it happen in voodoo. And so there are certain things that you would need to do in order to ensure that the spirits are able to communicate with the priest or priest to give them the information that they need. Okay. Khalid, I believe the source to power is beautiful. I do know the shadows, but with shadows comes wisdom. Grounding yourself is the real work. Absolutely. Grounding yourself, knowing what's what, right? So there are negative energies. I'm not going to tell anybody that doesn't exist, because it does. And you do need to be mindful and understand the difference in those communication patterns. And thank you so much for your insight as well, Khalid. Absolutely. Levine, you're saying you're going in and out. You're saying having your head red. Yeah, I think you're more inclined on like some of the diaspora traditions, because that's not been my experience in Ifa. That's all I'm going to say to that. I could be wrong, right? But I'll try to get some clarity. I'm not seeing our distant respondent, so he may have left, but I'll try to provide clarity maybe in even the comments on the YouTube video there. Alrighty, so few more I want to go through here. So even so, like falling ill or sick quickly, especially for no reason, right? And then you all of a sudden you realize that you avoided some type of danger. A lot for you to everybody coming in. Greetings to you all. So going back to what I was saying, like you may be about to go somewhere. This has actually happened to me, like I think it was last week. You may be about to go somewhere, and then all of a sudden, for no reason, you just get sick. You don't feel well, and you cannot go out. And you end up staying in the house or what have you, and you realize later on that something happened in the space or the place that you were about to go to. That could absolutely be a sign that the Orisha is there communicating with you, guiding you, protecting you, etc. It is not, can be, it is a sign. I know that happened to me. Like I said, last week I was getting ready to go somewhere with my daughter to take her out. And all of a sudden, my stomach just started hurting. I felt like I had to, you know, back my food back up. And I had ended up laying down and falling asleep. I slept for maybe about an hour or two, which is not even common for me to sleep during the day. And then I get back up, I felt perfectly fine. And I was like, I didn't know if it was something behind it specifically, but I just felt like my spirits were protecting me. It was some reason why they did not want me to go out of this house today. And so I was just grateful that they did that to keep me in, because I was trying my best to go and take her. So yes, you're here. So I would just if you could clarify on that question. I don't know if you heard me or not, but the question or the scenario is basically that could the Orishas, could your head or what have you prevent the priest or the priestess from actually doing a reading for you when it comes to Ifa divination? If you could answer that. So whenever you can get to that. Let's see. Going back. All right. And then, another example would be just feeling uncomfortable, uncertain, right? I always say, I tell my daughter this all the time: if something doesn't feel right, do not press for it. If it's a person, a situation, a scenario, if it doesn't feel right, you just feel drained, you feel depressed. You can even get really, really sleepy all of a sudden when you're around somebody, or really tired. That could be a sign that your Orishas are speaking to you, telling you that situation is not right for you. Okay. But anytime that you're not feeling right about a situation, you need to go with your intuition. You need to go with your gut. Don't push through just because somebody wants you to push through, or you feel like you are obliged to push through. You need to stop and listen, because that spirit talking to you during that time. Yeah, you're saying disallowing them to tell you which Orisha rules your head. Okay, yeah. So she's saying specifically, the question is specifically, is that you're being, the priest or the priestess is not being allowed to read which head Orisha is working with you. Like, is that a common scenario? Is that a scenario that happens? So yeah, those are some of the signs. Again, there's plenty more that go along with that. Now, I'm about to close shortly after this one. I want to just talk, close up with, how can you work with the Orishas for continued growth in your life, to help you to transform and to be the best person that you can be, and to help you to walk towards fulfilling your destiny. Okay. And so, guys, if you do have any last comments, questions, statements, or anything like that, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And I'm going to just close with these last 4 things. Number 1, as I said before, Ebo. Continue working with them. Continue giving them the sacrifices and the offerings to appease them, so that they can work at the most efficient level possible on your behalf. Consistent communication. That looks like prayer, talking to them, even walking around in your day-to-day. You don't have to be in a certain posture either. That's something else that I should have said when I was talking about prayer. You don't have to be on your hands and knees. You don't have to have your hands clasped. You could literally just walking around, in your kitchen or something, cooking, and just speaking to your Orishas. But consistent communication, that's important in any relationship, is being able to communicate with the people that you're working with. Okay. And in this case, with the Orishas. Obedience, following what they tell you to do. If you get a feeling or you're being shown not to do something or to do something, listening to that guidance and walking in obedience. Again, this is like, your parents, your guardians, particularly your head Orisha, but even so, your other Orisha are there for you to protect, to guide you, to support you. Just like a disobedient child, a parent does not appreciate that. The Orisha, your head Orisha, does not appreciate you being disobedient, right? What's the expression? A hard head toes a sore behind. And that's the way they feel too. Okay, you're gonna keep, disobeying, you're not gonna listen. We're gonna let you learn this lesson on your own, and it's not gonna feel so good when you do. Okay. So if you want to grow, if you want to expand, you want to listen to that spiritual communication. You can grow absolutely by receiving an Orisha pot or an icon. Don't misunderstand me when I said earlier, you can get these dynamics. I just caution people not to go down that path until they are actually ready for it. It is tremendous. It is a tremendous blessing. It has been in my life. I have a number of Orisha pots that I work with on a regular basis. However, I don't say to any and everybody, just go and get an Orisha pot. If you can't, do that, you can't work with it at the level that you want to work with it, you definitely need to find an alternative route. That could be getting the Lakis just to work with that. Or it could also be, what do you call it? Leaving or getting an Orisha pot and leaving it with your owl or something like that. So those are the things that I want to close with. I do have a few more questions that I want to take care of here. Do I have any information on African shamanism? Check out the resource page on my website. If you want me to send it to you, just DM me and I'll send you the link. I do have some resources there that talk about different forms of African shamanism and things like that. Why does it hurt when you finally learn to know yourself? It depends on the person. It probably hurts because you've been so long. I know for me personally, just being so long with not really knowing who I was and not operating at the highest version of myself. That's why it hurt me personally. But everybody goes through, certain things, because I look back on my life and I'm like, wow, if I had known all of this then, and I know, everything is in divine timing, etc. But if I had known all of these things that I know now, there's so many choices or decisions that I would have made very, very differently. What state am I in? Arizona. I'm in Goodyear, Arizona. You said thank you for your time, information, knowledge, sharing, patience. You're greatly appreciated. Looking forward to the next one. Ashe, and thank you all for coming. Thank you all for supporting our efforts. And with that, I'm definitely going to go ahead and close because I'm over the hour. I will get back any answers to you. So guys, check out the YouTube video for anybody who is watching live on Instagram, because it won't be available on Instagram after that. It will be live on, you can watch it on replay on YouTube. And I'll also be putting it on Spotify, but it will take me a few days before it gets on Spotify. So ashe, everyone. I appreciate you all for coming. You guys have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond.